G'day YouTube. Baubles on a lot here. Looking at the forest canopy. I'm about 75 yards inside my boundary on the western side and just having a bit of a look up at the treetops. And for the whole time I've been living up here, the theory has been that it's good to live inside the forest because the trees shade the ground and that keeps the understory cool, and therefore during the drought, under the trees is the very last place to dry off. That's been the theory. And I've long understood that during dry times the trees will more or less voluntarily, apparently, shut off water supply to some of their leaves and drop those leaves onto the ground in order to shade the soil, keep their roots cool, prevent evaporation and keep some green vegetation alive on the forest floor. In this drought though, it's a little bit different. Whereas well inside my boundaries, most of the trees are still all green. There's a patch up here on the northwest corner where large clumps of trees are all going brown at the same time. And all their leaves are pretty much fit to drop at the same time. Here's another example. Green grass growing up through the leaf carpet on the forest floor. This is kind of how the forest is supposed to work in my understanding. And this is just a little clump of trees in the middle of about a 3 or 4 acre clearing. But there we see this desiccated brown leaf effect appearing about, as I said, within 70 yards of my boundary fence, which is over on the other side of the tree line. Now looking west, and my theory is that this little gully here, its water level, subterranean speaking, is running low, and the lateral tributaries that feed it underground are running low, and it seems that the trees that live not quite on the ridge but parallel to the ridge, they're going dry. So here's a gentle pan from the bare rocks I've been trying to cover up. Going up into the trees, and look at that. The canopy over here is brown and dying. Not every tree, and I can't say that it's the stringy barks that are worse affected than the wattles, although you might almost think that. But there are some wattle trees that have suffered just as badly as the surrounding stringy barks, and there's stringy barks that are side by side with one that's suffering badly, and it'll be okay. It's very patchy, and I think it's got to do with underground drainage. As you can see, very patchy. And this is one such patch. Which is pretty much directly over the top of a bare exposed basalt rock dome. There's just not enough cracks in the rock under the ground to support the water requirements of a tree that big. Not apparently during the Barnaby drought. Here we see the bare rocks. And there we see the dead leaves over the top of them. Patchiness in the phenomenon, but it's there. Working its way all the way down, and it's both sides of the fence. Once you get down to a level close to my hut, some trees are green, some trees are brown, some trees, their leaves are nearly white. So given a strong wind, a whole lot of these leaves are going to come down and lay on the ground and contribute to this magnificent leaf carpet of perfectly cured bushfire fuel. And this is a place where I burned only 3 years ago. And while the view looking into the clearing isn't so bad from this side, the view looking back in the other way is rather more grim. Because my hut is overtopped and surrounded by water-stressed trees. A situation which has come about for the same reason that when I get really, really strong rain, a spring opens up in the centre of my kitchen floor. It's because I deliberately put my place in the middle of the flattest, greenest spot I could find, with the theory that if you build your place on top of a spring, that when the dry comes along and the countryside gradually desiccates, then the very last place to go dry should be the spring. That was my theory, you see. And that's all well and good, apparently, during what you might call a normal drought. But under what you might call normal circumstances, you know, you'd have a 10-year drought every 200 years, and that would be followed by wetter seasons. Well, we had a 10-year drought at the turn of the century, the millennial drought, as everybody called it. And then this is about our third or fourth drought since. And as it said on the label, global warming will make all weather extremes more intense, more extreme and more frequent. And it's really, really patchy. This tree out in the sheep farm, it has green leaves and it still has green grass growing under its shade. Yet, a mere 25 metres away, perhaps 1 metre higher up the hill, and that is just completely desiccated, dead. Half its leaves are already on the ground. And by the way, that's what the driveway looks like from out here, with my place on the other side of the telephone pole, in among the dead brown leaves. So it appears that I may not have allowed sufficiently for the extremity of the intensity of the frequency of the drought, and therefore I might have snookered myself. Time will probably tell. And let's just hope nobody drops a match. Because in country like this, as dry as it is, the only way to stop it will be to run away to the Great Eastern Firebreak and stand up to your nose in the Pacific Ocean. All of which has caused me to have a bit of a look at my firefighting equipment and make sure that it's actually fit for purpose. And while it's true that both the backpacks do need a bit of regular maintenance and some repair work to cover up where the ultraviolets degraded the plastic, the biggest actual issue was with the 1948 worm-old simplex Airport Firefighter, which had been suffering from a leak because of rust entrapped in the nylon seat on the giant ball, which is supposed to be a mirror finish shiny. And because it was old and rare and I didn't know whether I could get another one, I've put up with it for 25 years. Now the hose could handle 100 pounds per square inch or 700 kPa, because the bloke who put the hose and the nozzle on there liked to overbuild everything. So the hose is good for 16.5 megapascals, which is about 35 times more pressure than it was ever going to cope with. But the plastic barrel of the nozzle failed. And though I did a really, really high-grade hillbilly reparo job on it, I just couldn't bring myself to trust it, fearing that one day you might go out there to a fire and turn the pressure on and have the end of the nozzle fall off. And it occurred to me that 8 metres is not enough for a hose. So I went to town, and while in the market for a new shut-off valve, like that one, I lashed out and bought myself a 36 metre length of firefighting hose, figure 8 cross flaked so it won't tangle, as well as a brand new solid brass infinitely variable nozzle. And after 3 days of failing to fix this setup, this is what I came home with. So now for 2 minutes I'm as good as a fire truck anywhere in the clearing. I can come over to here and defend the eastern side of the aeroplane trailer. I can bring a hose over here to the driveway and defend from behind a stone barrier. Ciao.